fill in a blank here on that juror number 4 now, who said he's fascinated by Donald Trump. What else did he say?
No, I'm reading from the transcript here, Lois.
Oh, you got the transcript.
And
okay.
You have to imagine this real tone of wonder in this juror's voice, who's now on the panel, saying, I find him fascinating and mysterious. He walks into a room and he sets people off one way or another. I find that really interesting. Really? This one guy can do all this? Wow. That's what I think.
And what did the prosecutors have to say to that juror in questioning?
This was during an exchange not with the prosecutors, but with Todd Blanche. Because you have to remember, during this entire process, the court has studiously avoided trying to elicit from jurors, what do you think about Trump? Todd Blanche tried to push that in the pretrial hearings. That failed. And the judge said their opinions on Trump are immaterial. But during this process, during voir dire, Trump's lawyers have the chance to try to elicit that information. Elicit, they did. And this one actually made the cut.
So, Andrew, each side at this point has used more than half of their preemptory challenges they can just offer without saying why. That juror coming in and saying, I'm fascinated by Donald Trump, he walks into a room. There's more than one way to read that, but that had to make the prosecution a little nervous listening to that.
So I'm struck by the fact that both sides have used 6 out of their 10 peremptory challenges, so they only have 4 left. There are 2 ways that juries can be chosen typically, and this is the one that's least gives the least amount of information to both sides. It's euphemistically called the flop method, and the other is called the strike method. The strike method is much better because you see all 38 potential jurors at once. You will see everybody who could be on the jury, and then you exercise your 10 peremptories, and the other side exercises their 10 peremptories. They don't have to, but that's up to 10. But you can see who the universe is. Here, you just do it sort of seriatim, so you don't know what's coming next. So what's striking to me is that there were at least 6 people who the prosecution and 6 people who the defense clearly thought they were so bad for them that they wanted to strike them. But it does leave both sides potentially vulnerable. And remember, what both sides are looking for is an anchor juror. They want somebody who's going to be so strongly for them, and then they don't really care whether the rest are sheep. That's sort of the general model. So when you only have 4 peremptories on each side, the potential of getting sort of somebody who's sort of strong one way or the other rises.
Yeah, and with only 4 left on each side, this means this could end up moving faster. And I just want to go back and double underline this point for the audience. It's so important because I think a lot of people out there think they hear a juror say something that they don't like and they think, well, I would challenge that juror. And the answer to that is you might not if you have no idea who that juror is going to be replaced by. And that's the game they're playing now. They have
exactly.
It's not like, oh, if I challenge that juror, then the next one up is Andrew. You don't know who the next one up is.
Right. Well, that's a terrible example. But yes, exactly. You don't see all 38 possibilities. So you have to exercise. And that's, to me, it's interesting that as the prosecution, they would exercise 6. It means they really didn't like them. At least that's what I'm sort of intuiting, because they have 4 for the remainder. Now, they won't care quite as much about the sort of the end alternates because the chances of getting to them are much lower. So they'll be focused very much on the next 5 is where they're going to really be focused, thinking that's the group of 12 then.
Adam, what else struck you during jury selection today?
Well, there was one point, and another piece of transcript before me, there was this one moment where the judge all but accused Trump of juror intimidation. What happened, there was a moment when the juror was called back into the room to answer for a social media post. She had posted a video that was around the time of the presidential election, around the time of Trump's defeat, and that it showed a street celebration. And I'm reading from the court about what the judge observed of Trump's reaction to her answers, the innocent explanation for that video, said, "Before we continue, I want to put something on the record." This is Justice Merchan. "So, Mr. Blanche, while the juror was at the podium, maybe 12 feet from your client was audibly uttering something. I don't know exactly what he was uttering. He was audibly gesturing, speaking in the direction of the juror. I won't tolerate that. I won't have any jurors intimidated in this courtroom. I want to make that crystal clear." So that, of course, is an incredible moment. The accusation, we have to remember that Trump is still facing a potential contempt of court. There's a hearing scheduled for next week. He's been commanded to show up on pain of arrest. So when that moment rang out, it was an incredible moment in the courtroom. And the juror survived for cause challenge. The Trump team needed to strike her with a peremptory challenge.
That's one they had to use their challenge on. They had to decide. Yeah. Andrew, I want to go back to the evidence as presented by witness Trump to the press today. Something we'll never hear him say in the courtroom because he'll never testify. Right. But his defense that he's going to present every day in some version there outside of the courtroom is listen, I was paying a lawyer. Michael Cohen was my lawyer. I was paying him for years. These checks to Michael Cohen were just me paying Michael Cohen, the lawyer. That's the defense. They're not going to get it from Donald Trump's mouth, but that's what the defense lawyers will be trying to get through cross-examination and other witnesses.
Yeah, so the clip you played was fascinating because he blew it. If you listen really closely, he starts by saying, "I," and then he goes, "Oh, wait, no, the accountant
yes.
Did this." So it's like, wait, that's right. It wasn't I who did it. I have to say the accountant did it because then I can say I didn't know what the accountant was doing.
And he kind of pretends he doesn't know who the accountant is.
Yeah, I mean, but he wants to say whoever that is, I didn't really know. And by the way, whatever they wrote down was actually legal because it's like it's fine to describe repayments of money to hush money payments to a porn star as legal fees. That's one where if you have a smart jury, which when I was doing this, I always looked for smart jurors. That's when I used to say, good luck to you. That I don't think is going to fly. But I just thought it was fascinating that he couldn't keep the story straight, which has got to be the accountant did it, I didn't do it, but he started out by saying this is what I did. That is not going to be great. It'll be interesting to see whether the prosecution actually tries to use that because it's an admission. That tape that you just played is something that is potentially admissible.
And he's going to do some version of that pretty much every day out there.
Well, just to be clear, we saw that when Rudy Giuliani did that, and the evidence of what he said outside of court was played in the civil case, the civil defamation case that he lost. The same thing happened in the E. Jean Carroll case, where all those statements are admissible. They're admissions. And so this is one where you're seeing, again, no client control. And so he could really hurt himself. But, he only has himself to blame.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.